Hello, Teri Degler.
Hi, Lilu. How are you today?
Very good. Thank you for accepting this interview about one of your latest books. You wrote many, many books. You're an award-winning author. And today we're going to talk about the divine feminine fire. Ooh la
That's
la. We love that in France.
good. And yeah, it should be good in France. Lots of fiery feminine in France.
Yeah, so tell us more about that energy. Tell us more about this fire. Do we all have it?
Well,
What is it?
we all have it, and it's closely related to creativity, and it's closely related to the way we can get more creative inspiration in our daily lives, which I think is something we all want, is more creative inspiration, whether it's to solve problems in daily life or to solve problems at work or in creative works like we think of creativity in terms of the art. But basically, one of the ways we can look at it that most people would understand today is yoga. Because in the ancient texts that yoga comes from, Hatha yoga, which is what we are all doing today, or most people are doing today, Hatha yoga has a tradition of something called Kundalini Shakti. And this is a divine feminine energy that rests at the base of the spine and can be awakened through the practice of yoga. And all yoga really is about Kundalini, but most people don't know that. But anyway, then this, as we tune into this divine feminine energy, we get more inspiration in our lives. That's kind of encapsulating it. But one of the really interesting things about this is that it can be found in all the other cultures too. And that's what I do in the Divine Feminine Fire. I look at Kundalini Shakti as it can be found in Sophia in Old Testament Christianity, and as it can be found in Shekinah in Jewish mysticism.
Very interesting. So tell us, what is that Kundalini? What is Kundalini really? Because we hear it sometimes it's related to Tantra, to sexual practices, but what is it exactly?
Kundalini is really life energy, and it's not so much something different as a different kind of process. Almost, it's something that goes on in the body. I mean, I'm sure if you've done yoga, and I'm sure you have, you know what prana is. Prana is life energy, and the idea behind Kundalini is that it is just an intensified form of prana that rests at the base of the spine. It's life energy, it's divine energy, it's the energy that comes to us from the divine feminine in called Shakti. Anyway, so this
Yeah.
yeah, so it rests at the base of the spine and can be activated through the practice of yoga. But it is also,
Only yoga, or there is some moves and breathing and things like that that can start awaken that Kundalini.
I think anything. Because I believe that there's only one energy in the universe, and so it's the same thing as Holy Spirit. I think it's Ruah in Judaism. It's holy divine energy, and it's the energy of transformation. So we activate it through prayer, through any kind of spiritual practice activates this. It's just that because the ancient yogis described it so clearly, it's really easy to understand in terms of yoga. Even though the word Kundalini sounds strange to the Western ear.
It sounds good, I would say. But tell me, so does this energy actually in all of us circulate, or is it blocked and we have to deblock it and then it unleashes our creativity? How does this work?
Well, two ways. One is that there's because it is life energy, it's always Kundalini in the form of prana Shakti is always flowing through our bodies. That's life energy. That's the divine energy in us. So that is responsible for thought, for action. It's always working. However, an intensified form activated well in yoga through hatha yoga practices, through breathing practices, through all these different things that you learn in yoga, but mainly breathing. But again, the same thing happens with prayer in Christianity and in Judaism.
So then it starts to flow, and then we start to experience ourselves to a new level. I mean, is there some exercises that we can do to awaken that yearning that we have? Because you talk a lot about that yearning that we have to learn more, that this calling that we all feel, but we want to kind of be able to let it flow, and
Yes,
you have your own
it's
words to talk
very
about that.
Very easy. That's one of these things, so many spiritual practices are simple but not easy, right? So let me say simple. But I think any spiritual practice, as long as you're following your spiritual practice in a sincere way and not over. So many people are overdoing their spiritual practices today. In the Divine Feminine Fire, what I do in this book is look at it, just 4 simple steps, really. One is to understand this feminine energy. And to that effect, I explain what Shakti is, what Sophia is, what Shekinah is in the Divine Feminine Fire, very simply. And then the second thing is, once you are tuned in to the fact that this in all these 3 traditions, this divine feminine is embodied. It's in our body. It's part of us. So all we have to do is tune into it, listen to it, know it in our body. And that's a big part of the book, because I look at 5 different women, contemporary women, and then 3 different mystics from ancient times who were very tuned into this. A Christian, 2 Christians, St. Hildegard of Bingen and Mechtilde Magdeburg, and then one Hindu, Mahadevi Akka, who was a famous Hindu saint, and some others. But basically you learn to tune into it. So that's it. You learn to listen to it. And then you learn to hold it in your body. So basically, if we look at this as power, the feminine, in this tradition, we tend to think of the masculine as energy and the feminine as passive. But in Hindu tradition, that's not true. The Shakti energy is feminine, is the power. And that is true of Sophia in the Old Testament, and Shekinah too. These are powerful images. So we learn to sit with this power in our bodies, to be comfortable with it. So we learn to sit with it, then we learn to listen to it. And as we do, then we naturally want to express it. When we feel that yearning, as so many people are feeling today, whether it's to be creative or to go out and change the world, to save Mother Earth, to work for the environment, all these things are that divine energy pushing us forward. So we listen to it, we sit with it, and then we allow it to guide our lives. And then we express it into the world. Because that's the natural thing. It wants to come up. It wants to express. And that's what the Divine Feminine Fire is all about. We want to express it, then we need to express it. And that's all we have to do.
Would you have one or little tips for us now? Are we talking of incantations or rituals or a breathing exercise that we can do to start to let it flow?
I think one of the most basic is basic pranayama. And if you do hatha yoga, you've probably learned pranayama, which is just basic breathing, where you learn to breathe so that the air goes very deeply into your bottom, first the bottom part of your lungs, then the middle, and then the top. And you hold it for maybe a few counts, and then you let it out. And actually, I describe all these techniques on my website, which is just www.teridegler.com. I have a newsletter, and every newsletter has a different creativity exercise and a different, explains pranayama and explains ways we can tune in, we can go in, and how we can write and invocate sort of a prayer, if you will, to say before we begin our creative exercises. And of course, a lot of these are in the book too, in the Divine Feminine Fire. But basically learning to breathe and seeing that just prana is everywhere. In Hinduism, it tells us the life energy is vibrating everywhere, and that the richest source of it is the oxygen around us. All we have to do is breathe it in and be conscious that that's what we're doing. Because we're always breathing, but we're not conscious that we're breathing in life energy all the time.
Can you tell us about the precious juice of grace?
Oh, I'm so glad you said that. I love that expression. That expression comes from Mahadevi Akka, and she was a 13th century Hindu saint who lived in southern India, and she's revered throughout that part of India, as still today as a great holy woman. And one of her poems, she writes about the awakening of Kundalini, which is very interesting. It's not from a yogic tradition. Her tradition doesn't talk about Kundalini, but she describes very, very carefully this waking of the energy through the 7 chakras, which I'm through, rising up into her brain and creating this immense capacity to write poetry. And this poetry just flows out of her. And then she says she realizes that the reason that this has happened is that so she can write the best she ever could. Those are her words, that I can write the best I ever can and allow this sweet juice of grace to flow out onto the world that so desperately needs it. So she does that through her creativity. And she's telling us that we can all do that through our creativity. That's one way, just as well as going out and working in environmental movements. I mean, 2 of my books have been about environmental issues, so I'm a really passionate environmentalist. But that our creative expression is also a way of pouring this sweet juice of grace out onto the world that needs it so badly right now.
It's juicy, juicy, juicy. This is why I always talk about, you know, my videos like daily inspiration for juicy living, because I believe this is part of the magic of life, right? The natural flow, the natural connection.
It's the life energy. It's divine and it's life energy.
Yeah, it's just frustrating when it's not flowing, and we have, I guess, our mental that and our experiences that can hold us back from being that, but we can all connect to that infinite source.
Yes, and that's why the idea of the breathing, the breath exercises are so good, and so many traditions are talking about that calm, easy breathing, connecting to the divine. But what's so beautiful about this is in this tradition, in Hatha Yoga and Tantra, which Hatha Yoga comes out of, in that whole strain of Hinduism, it's telling us that the entire world made of prana Shakti, this divine feminine, the world is bursting of this. It is made of this. This is the actual cosmic substance. So it's everywhere. So that makes it easy. It's in our bodies. We're made of it. We don't say Mother Earth. Divine Mother Earth is, we say it for a reason. Even St. Francis called it Mother Earth, Father Sky. The divine is in the earth. It's in our bodies. It's as close as the next breath. And that's what we have to remember. When we do get blocks, you're absolutely right. And those things, but by breathing, by eating, even simple things like getting enough rest, eating right, and again, not overdoing our spiritual practice. That's Gopi Krishna, who was my teacher in India, said this again and again, don't overdo it. Easy does it. He said his advice was so simple. He said, follow the tenets of your own religion, whatever it is. Meditate a little, pray for others every day, and do at least an hour's work for other people a day. So the equivalent of 7 hours a week in what we call karma yoga, which is going out and being of service. That was the way to awaken Kundalini. Not to go on Hopi sweat dances or climbing up mountains or doing all these crazy things, but to be of service to others, just a little bit every day. We have to live in the world, right? I remember when you interviewed, I think it was Deepak Chopra, and you were saying, but why have to live in the world, you know? And we do live in the world. On the other hand, the world is Shakti. The world is this divine energy. And when we see it like that, it becomes different for us.
Thank you. Thank you for those wonderful, inspired words. I definitely recommend your book, The Divine Feminine Fire. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lilu.
Thank you, Teri.
I appreciate it so much being here.